So from this angle, you can see the light reflecting on where my previous mediocre repairs, trying to use a piece of bar stock underneath there to stretch it back out, worked. And it's just not clean, it's just not even. And this dent where the impact happened, somebody backed into us just in there, that's what happened, bent all this in. Now you could take a slide hammer in here and pull it out, but again, that's gonna punch it out. You gotta drill a hole in there for the slide hammer. And remember, we got those replacement clips, so I'm not too stuffed about these because I can replace them. The idea is we want to get this angle back to normal, this angle back to normal, pull this out, flatten the dents out. And it takes a bit of patience and a bit of hammer, but remember, other than the purchase of the hammers and some time, this costs $0 to try versus to buy a new one of these, which is about $700 before you even paint it. Well, we've got the fender off, and as I said, we're going to fix it with a hammer. We'll try to, at least. But if you're going to do your own panel work, you want to think about what you're going to use to actually do the job. The standard claw hammer, designed for wood, pulling nails. It can compress metal, but if you notice there's curves on the side of it, it's not exactly the way you want it to look. It's going to be a bit round on there, and it's going to create dents inside of it. Now, a rubber mallet can be used to even out a lot of things. I mean, have one on your camping trip, use it to hammer in tent stakes, etc. A ball peen hammer, now to be honest, this does go in our camp trip when we go out there. Can use it for metal work on that, but the idea with this particular hammer when we have it is if I'm out there, I need to beat the shit out of some metal, get it out of the way so I don't puncture a tire or rip a belt or something like that. That's really its only purpose. So what you're actually going to want to get is some panel beating hammers, and this kit, I'm not sponsored, but I got this from Sydney Tools. It cost about 70 bucks. And pull these out, show you each of the hammers. They've got little edges, flat, tipped. This is for knocking down points, smaller bits, square-sided, versus round-sided, as well as what's called a dolly. It's got 4 of these in here, and each of these has contours on it and shapes that you can use into grooves, into dents, into trim pieces to try to even things out. Now you'll notice that these hammers themselves are not massive like this 24-ounce ball peen hammer. The idea is you tap things through, you don't smash them through. We're not trying to blacksmith a panel, right? Alright, so we have our fender on here. I've got a sandbag on top of it. Anything of weight to hold it down, because when we start hammering on it, it's going to bounce around, and so we don't want that to happen. We want it to be a bit more stable for us. I've got a sandbag. You can use some bricks wrapped in a towel. Anything you can find heavy enough to hold it down, and that'll do fine for you. Alright, so let's talk about the dollies. The idea of these is that it's kind of like the anvil to your hammer. I'll set it here. If I'm hammering on the other side of a piece of metal, don't hammer the GoPro, dummy. Alright, it'll create that little surface there, but if it's here, it gives me a bit of a curve. I can tap this through, and each of these will match contours on the other side. So when I'm hammering, it's not just hammering in the open air, because if you do that, then you get the imprint of the hammer rather than just flattening the metal. Big thing to remember when you're doing panel works, you're not flattening metal, you're stretching it. Metal bends, right? So even if you try to flatten it, it's going to stretch out. So we're going to try to follow along the lines in here, stretch it back to the position it meant to be, and you can see fairly clearly on this side where the actual dents are. So it's okay with you. I'm going to put on some heavy metal and sit in my stool and put you guys on fast forward. So we're taking a look at how we're bringing the dents out of it, and I think it's actually pulling fairly nicely right now. It's going to take a while. I mean, it's not a quick slam and done, but I'm going to leave this on right here so you can hear. We're trying to get it to where the sheet metal is flat between the dolly and the hammer. I'm looking for a solid sound. If it sounds hollow, then I know there's a gap in there. That's what I'm trying to flatten out. You hear how it's a solid sound? That's what we're trying to achieve. And we're going to go over this for a while. Then we'll clean all that up. Or use body filler, I don't know. Quick slam and done. But I'm going to leave this on right here so you can hear. We're trying to get it to where the sheet metal is flat between the dolly and the hammer. I'm looking for a solid sound. If it sounds hollow, then I know there's a gap in there. That's what I'm trying to flatten out. You hear how it's a solid sound? That's what we're trying to achieve. And we're going to go over this for a while. Then we'll clean all that up. So take a look at how windy the dead side. I think it's right now. It's going to take long. It's not. is this. It's bent in, and no, that's not clean, but when I open this back up and level this surface out, you can see how it's warped inside of there. It's actually caused a dent on the bottom. We're going to try to clear up. Just quickly, what I'm doing, using a crescent wrench, fitting it on there, and just lightly massaging the sheet metal into the sort of the right shape. I'll square it up here as I go. So, because of the original damage and what we've done to it with the hammer and stuff, we chipped off a bunch of paint. So I'm going to have to paint it anyway. And do it right, we're going to have to sand it. So let's do another trick and try to clean it up just a bit more. So I know these are not automotive sanding blocks. I'll do that later on the final finish. But the idea is we're going to sand this down and we'll be able to see where the bumps are and the dents. And so as we find those, we can go and try to repair those and clean them up just a bit more before we get done. So a few hours of working on it. I will reiterate that I am not a panel beater, but it doesn't look terrible. I'll probably do a little more, just touch up on it to make it just a bit cleaner, but at the end of the day, it's a 4-wheel drive. So how much do I want to do to it to make it perfect? Because it's not a trailer Betty, right? If you got a 4-wheel drive, it's going to get scratched, it's going to get bent. You just got to do things to it. So I just want to make it look a bit cleaner than have a big dent in the side of it as it did before. So with that in mind, I could probably finish this out with filler, but probably do a few more taps on it and decide how much of a perfectionist I want to be before we go to sand, prime, and paint. And I'm probably not going to reshoot the whole thing. Probably just going to come into here in this area just to clean this up, but we'll see how it blends. Yeah. Fix it with a hammer. Told you so. By the way, if you're feeling generous and enjoying what we're doing here, wouldn't mind one of those GoPros you can put on your hat so I don't have to pick up a camera all the time. Just keep working and look around and you can see what I see. Please. So I've got it relatively straight, but we're going to need to prime and paint this. You can see we've got the bare metal. If we leave that exposed, it's going to rust. This is going to rust. Little spot in there as well that we're not happy about, but that was from when the actual impact happened. I guess it cracked the metal. You can see I think you can see the light there. So how we're going to do it? Got some abrasive wheel that's on here, and you notice that I am now using a corded drill, a plug-in one. There's nothing wrong with a corded drill. Matter of fact, I'd rather use this cheap drill for kind of torquey, grinding, angly work, so I don't potentially damage my Makita. Don't know if I will or not, but don't want to test it and kind of cheap insurance. All right. I know I started pointing at this part down here. We're going to clean that up. While I was looking at the panel, I figured we'd take off and knock off any of the rust we can, because we'll go ahead and prime and paint that while we're in here and take care of it. But I learned a valuable lesson, and this is for the blokes and the gals and anybody else who actually has a partner in their life. When you're grinding on metal and your missus is on a conference call, you may or may not get yelled at. So I'll be back in a little bit. Now I get back to it. So we've got it relatively straight, but we're going to need to prime and paint this. You can see we've got the bare metal. If we leave that exposed, it's going to rust. This is going to rust. There's a spot in there as well that we're not happy about, but that was from when the actual impact happened. I guess it cracked the metal. You can see right there. So how are we going to do it? Got some abrasive wheel that's on here, and you notice that I am now using a corded drill, a plug-in one. There's nothing wrong with a corded drill. Matter of fact, I'd rather use this cheap drill for kind of torquey, grinding, angly work, so I don't potentially damage my Makita. Don't know if I will or not, but don't want to test it and kind of cheap insurance.